Please enjoy this message from David Arquette sent in by the fabulous Carrie Tenney.
Hey Ryan, how are you? Thanks for doing the Scream podcast.
Like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know.
You have to have a favorite. What comes to mind?
You are listening to Scream with Ryan C. Showers, the podcast for Scream fans just like you. Join Ryan every week as he takes a deep dive into the horror film series that defined the 90s and redefined the genre. Scream with Ryan C. Showers is your source for scene and quote analysis, character dissections, and the latest news about upcoming installments of the Scary Movie franchise.
I hear you like horror movies, Curly, but do you like them as much as him?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. I couldn't be more grateful for everybody out there who listens to the show, who supports my podcast here, listening every episode, or on social media on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. If you would like to become a member of the podcast, come to the group Zooms, be on the show on a one-on-one or small group setting, consider joining the Patreon with Scream with Ryan C. Showers. In addition to the benefits of coming on the podcast, you can also join our social media groups, in particular on Instagram. That's the main hub of the podcast. I also do a monthly audio commentary of a Scream movie or a Scream-related film. From now through April, we are going to be having a new Scream movie audio commentary. So if you would like to hear my thoughts in an audio commentary form in the style of Wes Craven, Marion Maddalena, et al. Of the original trilogy, please consider subscribing and supporting the show. Thank you to every single person out there who subscribes on Patreon. So I need to thank TJ Jones, who does all of the graphic design work for the podcast, and Ashley Summers, who helps me produce the show every week. In addition, I need to thank everybody over at Patreon, including the Stab Investors and Daddy Ghostfaces. The Daddy/Mama Ghostfaces, they include Carrie Tenney, Corey Wilson, Andrew Dominguez, and Brett Janovich. I also need to thank all of my Stab investors. They include Mark Harim, Josh Carr, Allie, Tamika Jones, Christian Ranke, David D., Gustavo Mora, Jess Mariano, Joey Nabrini, aka The Vault, John Cardney, Josh Camillari, Scream Queens Podcast, both Josh and Justine, Kevin Abner, Mark Vieira, PWO5, aka Philip Douglas, Roy Garza from the Hoodie Talks podcast, Ryan Not Dying Young, Sam Levy, and Stevie Shears. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me for this Sarah Michelle Gellar exclusive episode of the podcast. So this is going to be a Scream light week because there are two things that kind of relate to the world of Scream that involve her that we discuss in this episode. So namely, we're going to discuss the cancellation of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, New Sunnydale. A few weeks ago, Sarah came to us on Instagram and told us that it was canceled. And since then, other details have emerged. So the recording that you're going to hear first is going to be me and Sarah Campbell and Sam Levy. This recording was done maybe a week or so ago. I wanted to capture the emotion of how we felt in the moment. And then you're going to hear a review of Ready or Not 2, which Sarah Michelle Gellar is a supporting role in. It's a film directed by Radio Silence that is obviously connected to Scream. This is them going back to their original IP after they had the fame of Scream 5 and 6 and the flop of Abigail. There's a review of that with me, my friend Anthony DePuzzo, Allie, and Mark Harim. He makes a little cameo appearance at the end. I wanted to discuss something before I throw it over to the main episode, which is the box office. I made a post last week where I discussed the idea of box office versus the Rotten Tomatoes critics reviews. And it's just very striking, you know, Scream 7 and Ready or Not 2, even though they're connected with this thread of Radio Silence, they expose a very creepy divide, I think, that exists between audiences and what they're willing to actually take their wallets out and pay to see in theaters versus what the film critics, what the extremely online, maybe even political people online are pushing as the cool thing that people should, keyword should, want to see. So it makes me reflect on the fact that online people, they are an echo chamber, and especially when it comes to film critics, right? That is very much different than what the general audiences are willing to go out and see. And we're seeing that because, Ready or Not 2, despite having really good critics reviews, it debuted with 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's not that anymore. more. It's fallen over the past couple of weeks, but like, the critics kind of really rolled out the red carpet for Radio Silence. And the film did not do well. It didn't even make 10 million its opening weekend. It made 9.1 million. It is a matter of optics, and when you add in the critics and how it almost feels like that they were force feeding Ready or Not to the public. Like I said, it feels creepy. Contrast that with Scream 7, where the critics were so unfair to Scream 7. They quote used their platforms, in a very like narcissistic way to virtue signal their own like political and partisan sentiments about the behind the scenes drama rather than reviewing the movie that was in front of them. I just don't believe film critics acted in an ethical way as it pertains to Scream 7. They really smeared Scream 7. Yet, despite that, and despite the boycott, despite the bad press, despite everything, Scream 7 made the most money of any other Scream movie in history. Let that sink in for a second. It is stunning. It set all these records with the most adversary maybe any horror movie has ever had. Imagine Scream 7's triumph there. Contrasted with Ready or Not 2, where all of the people who were criticizing Scream 7, unfairly I would add, they did everything that they could to make Ready or Not a success and to promote Radio Silence. And it almost feels like they're taking sides, right? Because it's Radio Silence and because the films are coming out so closely together. But isn't it interesting, though, the way that the critics treated each movie versus the way that the audience treated each movie, right? Scream 7 had a $64 million opening weekend compared to Ready or Not, which couldn't even break 10 million. Like, think about that. And also, like, Radio Silence made two Scream movies that each made 140, $160 million each. So to go from that, they accumulated all this fame, all this notoriety from doing these Scream movies. And they did Abigail. It was a flop, or at least what I considered a flop back then. It made 10 million its opening weekend. Now Ready or Not 2 comes out. So they go back to the IP that they created that got them Scream. And yet, for a sequel with directors that are pretty famous and an all-star cast, I do kind of consider that a flop. I'm sorry. I think it's really disappointing. And it just goes to show that people outside the echo chamber of online Twitter and online quote film critics, because I don't really consider them real film critics, what people actually think in real life. Money talks, money doesn't lie. The thing is, spoiler alert, I actually love both films. I actually really loved Ready or Not 2, but you can't deny that there is a disconnect between what critics are pushing, how they're trying to dictate culture versus what culture actually is. Like, I'm sorry, but Scream 7 is what culture actually is. Scream 7 is what people are paying to see, what people are going out of their way to see, versus Ready or Not 2, where they are being lectured at to see this movie because it's so good, because it's by Radio Silence. And the fact that a horror sequel, can't cross 10 million, it's not good. Like, I think it's a huge disappointment. Anyways, please enjoy the rest of the episode. And also, I'm sending all the love to Sarah Michelle Gellar. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this segment of Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers, and we are celebrating Sarah Michelle Gellar in this episode. So not only are we going to be hearing about Ready or Not 2, there's going to be a little bit of a review. And of course, Ready or Not 2, the best thing about Ready or Not 2 is the fact that Sarah Michelle Gellar is going to be in a horror movie in theaters for the first time in decades. This is a huge thing. So much to celebrate here. But there is a bittersweet aspect to the coverage today. As for, we learned that the Buffy reboot, aka it's Buffy: A New Sunnydale, that was in development at Hulu, created by Chloe Zhao, who is the Oscar-winning director of Nomadland, recently of Hamnet. So, she was the one who was in the driver's seat, convinced Sarah to come back and do the pilot for Buffy. And unfortunately, Sarah has come to us with news that Disney, Hulu, will not be proceeding with the pilot for a full series order. And we are coming to this very fresh. So we found this news out on Saturday. Fans all around the world have been reeling at this news online over the past couple of days. And yesterday and today, we have been getting more information about the development, the unraveling of Buffy, and how we got to this point. In this episode, we're going to break it down into 3 segments, basically like how we feel overall and how we felt like whenever it first happened and how we've been processing the news. Then I would like to go to kind of like the details about the pilot itself for Buffy, New Sunnydale. And then I want to discuss what Sarah Michelle Gellar told People magazine today. Today's Tuesday, St. Patrick's Day, actually. So happy St. Patrick's Day from the past, So, Sarah Michelle Gellar is on the cover of People magazine, which is so cool. This is the cover story. She's very candid in this, which is crazy. So okay, so that is the outline for this segment, everybody. Again, this is going to be a very, probably emotional and passion-filled segment. We all have very strong opinions. We here at Scream with Ryan C. Showers love Buffy, and you've heard the people I'm about to talk to talk about Buffy in the past many times. So everyone, without further ado, let's hear from our guests. So first, I need to welcome Sarah Campbell. Hey, Sarah.
Hey, Ryan. How's it going?
I'm well. How about you?
As good as can be.
As good as can be. That's a good way to put it. My gosh. Well, Sarah, just before I introduce the other guests, and then we dive really into the topic. How are you doing overall about the Buffy news?
I'm really mad. And the more I find out about it, the angrier I get.
I bet. Yeah. And I feel like that is a perfectly adequate place to be. And let's welcome our second co-host here for the evening. We're going to round out a trio here. We love a trio at Ryan C. Showers. Sam Levy. Hey, Sam.
Hi, baby. How's it going?
Oh my gosh. Can you believe we did the Buffy season 6 episode and we were like, oh my God, we'll do all of them before the new show comes out. It's so sad.
Well, now we'll have time.
Now we will have time. That's a great optimistic way to say it. Oh my gosh, I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
So Sam, same question I just gave to Sarah. How are you in general feeling right now?
I'm sorry for SMG and also all the new young cast who got hired to be involved in this project, and also everybody involved in the project. Again, I adore SMG. Buffy is my favorite show of all time. Want her to continue to be happy and successful with her and Freddie and her children and their family, like to continue to have new artistic success. Have always had mixed feelings, verging into optimistically cautious, or cautiously optimistic, because I loved how Buffy the OG series ended so much, and I ended in such a happy place for me. I was scared. I was excited for the new show, also possibly scared that if it came back, it would kill off characters that I loved and hoped would live happily ever after. So, but that being said, that's always part of an artistic journey. It's always a risk you take when you're emotionally invested in something. And I'm really, really, really annoyed that one, of course, male executive bragged about the fact that he never really watched the original show all the way through and was not really a big fan of it, and was just like, and it's like, what are you even doing here then? I get it. You're a big wig at Hulu and, it's like a power trip for you or whatever. But and not everybody is going to be on board. I understand that there's like not green lighting something for artistic reasons or you think it won't play. And from what I'm understanding, like the script that's been circulating around was like the first draft and it went back for rewrites or something like that. But to like cancel it outright after you filmed it, there's enough of a fan base and enough of a drive to make this happen and to be a moneymaker for all involved. So the fact that it got killed like this, yeah, I'm pretty pissed off.
Yeah. Well, so anger. We're starting with anger. I'm going to start with some sadness. Okay. So I want to take everybody back and like kind of really work through this. So like, I have like these 3 chunks I want to hit. So I want to go back to like whenever we first found out the news and how we processed everything. So if you guys are okay with it, I'm going to start this out just because I have a very like weird kind of story to go along with it. So I was actually sitting in the movie theater to see Scream 7 with Carrie from the Patreon and my sister Abby, of course. We were sitting there. It was, maybe 2 trailers from the movie starting, and we were all having a good time. And it's just, probably the last time I'm going to see Scream 7 in theaters. And it's like Neve Campbell returning to the main central role of the franchise, getting her big moment back. And, at the same time, I'm watching this miracle of a movie come out, the Sydney story of the modern era. I get a text from our friend Josh Calamari telling me, oh my gosh, the Buffy reboot has been canceled. Sarah just posted on Instagram. And Buffy and Scream are my 2 favorite things from the night. It's my favorite show, my favorite film. And it's just like, yeah, I'm seeing one of these things kind of like work out miraculously on screen exactly the way I want it. And then I'm seeing the other one kind of die on my phone in front of me. It was just the weirdest thing, And my sadness is multi-layered, kind of complex. And like, I just want to start out like saying like my biggest point of feeling about this is Sarah Michelle Gellar. She is my favorite actress. And it's really hard for me because she has it's not just Buffy for me. It's not just her horror films like Helen, Shivers, and Cece. Okay, yeah, whatever. I love her entire filmography. I love all of the shows she's done. She's such a magnetic talent and she deserves so much better. She's tried so much. She's tried original films. She's tried Oscar bait films. She's tried new shows like Ringer, the crazy ones. She tried resurrecting the IP of Cruel Intentions and nothing has worked. And it's just been like since Ringer was canceled in 2012, nothing has truly like taken off for her in the way that it should have. And it's just so frustrating for me on that level as a fan of her and for her herself. I feel terribly for her. And more so like it took her so long to say yes. You know what I mean? That's what hurts me. It's like once she finally says yes to it and does the thing, that's whenever the studio suddenly says no, that just it hurts beyond belief, and but like to be honest, like I didn't really want to see the Scream 5, like Sydney in Scream 5, Gale in Scream 6 version of Buffy, where she's very like consolidated as like a glorified cameo. I didn't want to see that, and based on like the information we've gotten since the weekend has kind of come and gone, it doesn't sound like that's how everything was going down. So had it just been the Buffy cameo show, I could kind of see like a shrug. But now that we find out that like she was a real big important part of the show, it makes me even more enraged. So, and like even if she would have been just the smaller part of this new show, I would have probably accepted it just because this is the reality. I accepted Scream 5. I didn't accept Scream 6. Fuck that. But but I was really looking forward to seeing the world of Buffy in the universe that was created and just the character again, even if it was small. And especially because like we had casting announcements and the reboot felt just so real. They publicized the casting announcement. They published the video of the new Slayer, and that just is so painful. It's just like why would you do that if you weren't sure? Absolutely sure. And it's just really frustrating. And everything today has a return, a reboot, a revamp. Whether it's Will and Grace, whether it's horror franchises that should be long and gone. And I just feel Buffy as an IP deserves a comeback too. And it's just so unfair, especially with Sarah and Chloe Zhao putting so much effort into this pilot. And, I will say, I actually kind of was thinking about Buffy recently because it's like, I was like, wow, they filmed that like almost a year ago, or at least it feels like a year ago with her in that red outfit. I'm like, what happened there? Now we kind of have more insight into it. But like, man, this is such an unfortunate turn of events. So that's my spiel. Sarah Campbell, I want to turn it over to you because I feel like you especially took this news really, really hard. So what are your thoughts, my friend?
Yeah, I think I took it hard because it took me a little while to get on board. And then when I got on board, I was fully on board. So like when they first announced it, I was also kind of skeptical. Like I told you, Ryan, I was like, Buffy to me is Scream to Ryan. Like Buffy is probably the most important piece of media in my life. And I was like, anytime somebody says any kind of like revival, reboot, continuation, remake, I'm always skeptical because I'm like, please don't ruin this thing that I love so much. But then it just like, we kept learning more about it, right? Chloe has been asking her for 4 years to do this. She's had dozens of people over decades asking her to do this. She's always said no. She's always turned it down. She's never been on board until now. Also, it wasn't going to be some reboot. It was going to be continuation of the world. So I wasn't worried about her, coming back and killing off old characters. Like, that just doesn't seem like something she would do. Like, she said it before, like, she likes how it ended, so I can't see her undoing anything or, like, retroactively hurting the show in the past because it is so special to her. So I was kind of happy to have it just be a new story with the occasional cameo, which I know is not everyone's cup of tea, but I was like, that kind of seems like the best of both worlds. Like, you can't really hurt the past, and we're now taking a new adventure, but in the same universe. So finally, I was on board, and I was on board fully. So then to like finally be excited for it and have it like taken away was so upsetting, especially when everything seems to be aligning, right? We have
Yeah.
Chloe so popular right now. We have Sarah on the rise back up. We have like a new cast, and it seems like everybody attached to this project thought it was all systems go. Everyone seems blindsided by this decision.
Well, it definitely seems like that. And it just seems like a weird time to announce it. The cynical part of me almost feels like I bet the decision was made by whomever at Hulu, at Disney. And like, this is the same company that's, of course, in charge of Ready or Not, too. And it's a part of me feels like, did they do this as like a rage bait to get more attention and more clicks to Ready or Not? Like which is such a dumb trade-off to me, but it's just the timing of it is just fucking weird, And to Sarah's point, Chloe Zhao is not just anybody. She is not Jennifer Caitlin Robinson, and she's not Radio Silence. No disrespect, but she is an Oscar-winning director, and she came to Sarah, and it wasn't, they wrote me a letter, like Radio Silence and Nev Gamble. This was like a concerted effort over a course of 4 years that they worked on this, and it's just mind-boggling that it fell apart so spectacularly. And, Sarah, I agree with what you're saying too. I kind of, here's the thing, because you and I had a really deep conversation about this on Saturday, about this, like people saying maybe it was for the best. And a part of me kind of understands the sentiment of like, if something as good as Buffy is, it's so good, the original show, why make a show if you know it's going to be inferior to the original? I get that. But at the same time, a part of me struggles with that, because it's like everything else gets to come back. Everything else gets a reboot. Why can't this IP continue to live on, even if it doesn't live up to the original show for people? I think that how you described, like, kind of like being open to the idea of it not being a Buffy-centric show, it speaks to me, because like a part of me wants to be in that universe again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think that they really fumbled this. And the other hurtful part is that just 4 days ago, Hulu was posting about the anniversary of Buffy. They were showing all the clips, they were celebrating it. And then to come out and be like, haha, just joking. I was like, that's a slap in the face.
Yeah, totally. Well, so Sam, how about you? Where do you stand in general?
The thing about this is, if it doesn't work out, there's probably a reason for it. And even if the reason is an angry, is a arrogant, like, male exec, whatever reason, maybe now was not the right time. Even though I think now we need Buffy more than ever, because Buffy is also my favorite television show of all time, and I also feel like so grateful that to be a part of that world, and I do feel like I am a part of that world. I feel like we're all Slayers now. But just because it's not moving forward now doesn't mean that it won't ever move forward again. It really does frustrate me, but sometimes I feel like I've learned, at least since I'm not a part of it, it's easier for me to like not get as upset because I wasn't directly involved in like the creation of this new IP. But I think maybe because I'm not, I can just kind of feel like, well, um if it was that hard to get it to go forward, maybe in its current form, there wasn't something right about it. Though I will say, I do think you may have meant a little disrespect towards Radio Silence, Jennifer Caitlin Robinson.
Whoops.
I think that she and SMG are friends, though. So
Yeah, Sarah, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make fun of your friend.
that's okay. That being said, I am upset. I am upset about it. Uh, I love that Chloe loves the show so much. She's obviously like went to Sunnydale High like the rest of us. I really want this to move forward. I feel like I've had more time to like absorb this. Again, I am annoyed that Hulu like was all promotional about Buffy and then was just like, oh yeah, actually.
Psych. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little disrespectful.
Well, and the thing that gets me is like, I would be okay. I could be fine with the idea of like Sarah Michelle Gellar is filming a pilot for Buffy and that's it. But the fact that they went so far to announce the friend group, the new central lead, and that they videotaped it and had Sarah on and like telling her, it just feels like, if you're doing all of that and then you don't even let us see it, something is off. And Sam, I get what you're saying. And like, I feel like, of anybody in the Patreon, you probably have like the strongest sensibility, or one of the strongest, of like, not beating a dead horse, so much. If something is
Thank you.
right, I think that's something I've observed about you over the years. And I think that what you said to me, because you texted me that on Saturday or Sunday, you said that the world needs Buffy right now. And also, like, I have to say, I just think Sarah is like the perfect age to come back. And it has been enough time. And because of the state of the world, it's just like, I felt like the pieces were coalescing in the perfect way. And the fact that I felt like she was excited about it. You know what I mean? And like she had Ready or Not coming out. I just felt like there was momentum, like Sarah was saying. Kind of a bummer, but yeah.
It is a bummer, and I hear you, and I do understand your frustration as well, because I know it does feel like everything else has been coming back, because it has been in a way. There are a lot of like old shows that from our generations, from younger, from like that millennials grew up with, and even Gen X have had revivals, I think, because people were clamoring for those kinds of like stories again, like those shows that were so well made that was like missing in the current era. And so they brought back Will and Grace, they brought back Roseanne, they brought back the X-Files, like all of these like iconic shows from the 90s and the 2000s. Buffy is on a par with all of those. And so to varying degrees of success, but these are shows that like, again, it's the power of the fans. It wasn't just that there were execs in there who were like, I missed this. I grew up watching this. Let's bring it back. No, there were people. They were like had such a strong fan base, and it was the vocal fan base that like created that awareness in the public and created that so that executives could be like, oh wow, everybody wants this show back. It got great ratings. People are clamoring for this. This is a really good opportunity to bring it back, to explore new stories, and to make money. because that's at the end of the day, that's the whole point. So it's really frustrating that somebody would drop the ball like this. Again,
Let's move on to just kind of like the specifics that have come out about the pilot that we know. There were a lot of assumptions running wild this weekend. There were, a lot of people who kind of felt like Sarah, who kind of like, detected that there was some misogyny at play here. And like, Sarah, you ended up being completely right about I bet a man was behind this because like, lo and behold, there it is. But, there was also just some discussion about like, well, maybe the pilot just wasn't good enough. Maybe Chloe Zhao's vision for Buffy didn't match up with the original spirit or something that would click. And even I was almost kind of like, I don't want to say I flirted with that, but there was a part of me that was listening to those people with that argument because, she's most famous for Nomadland. She did a movie called The Rider, Hamnet. Like these aren't movies that are especially Buffy-ish in tone and vibe. And, so there was a part of me that maybe she had a cerebral approach, you know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe it just didn't work in execution. And I heard from a lot of people who have read the script for the pilot that said that the pilot was just kind of it was kind of dull or boring or just didn't have like a fight in it, and it wasn't adult enough. Well, those concerns for me were laid to rest after more details had come out, because I was under the impression that they filmed the pilot episode that we were just waiting. So I guess there was more to the story. So we find out that script that everybody knows about, the script's like 59 pages, and Buffy is only in one scene on the very last page. It's like half of a page. She has one single line, and that is all we see of Buffy in the entire pilot. So that's what I thought we were working with. That is not the case. So that's what was filmed, okay? However, the writers did a big, massive overhaul on the script. They added in about 30 more pages. So it went from a 60-page to a 90-page script. It made it a more mature in tone, a darker tone, more adults, more Buffy. Buffy was kind of the central focus of these other 30 pages. They didn't get to film it, but that was the idea that they were going with. So that's where everything was at before the cancellation, before Sarah Michelle Gellar got the news when she was at the Ready or Not 2 premiere at South by Southwest, and Chloe Zhao was getting ready for the fucking Oscars this weekend. So they never filmed that script. And for me, this is where I'm going to snap, okay? It's like, imagine, okay, and I'm trying to put this in like Scream language because this is a Scream podcast. So imagine, like, let's just say Scream 6, okay? And they have the script. And then we find out that they're going to add in, 30 more minutes of just Gale Weathers. Gale Weathers at her studio, investigating, finding the shrine, Gale Weathers at the end, explaining more about her book, and then, then Scream 6 gets canceled. Now I'm ready to snap, okay? Because it's just like, it seems like they took some constructive feedback from the studio. If I see this and I say, oh, wow, it looks like Hulu and Disney wanted more Buffy in this, if they went back and rewrote it and insisted that not only it was not like this was 10 pages, this was 30 pages. That's a shit ton. That's over half of the script, a third more was added, which is crazy. So, to me, it's just like, I don't understand what the deal is, what the problem is at this point, especially if we have this opportunity with Buffy to have such, not only, a lot of time with her, but also the right tone and seeing her as an adult. It's very much like the Hilary Duff, Lizzie McGuire stuff that happened a couple of years ago. So, Sarah, you mentioned that like you kind of accepted that we wouldn't really get a Buffy-centric script. And then doesn't this news the fact that like they added in 30 pages focus on Buffy with the tone of like, let's just say, in my mind, I'm imagining like the second half of season 2, innocence through becoming, like that kind of tone, or even, something like that, where it was just, more adult than it was teenage. And I assume that maybe the original script was more teenage-ish, kind of maybe more juvenile. For them to make the tone more adult and add in so much of Buffy and then cancel it, what the fuck?
Yeah, that drove me nuts because I'm like, okay, so you read it, you thought it was too juvenile. That's a valid criticism. You then allowed them to go rewrite it and fix it, I'm saying in air quotes, change it to how you wanted it, and then can it? Like, did you have any intention of actually letting it go through, or are you just wasting everybody's time?
And imagine this too. Here, this is a better example instead of Scream 6. Imagine Scream 5, where they wrote 30 extra pages. So that we have the script of Scream 5. They add in 30 more pages of Sydney, Gale, and Dewey. And to not get it now, it's just like, I'm feral. You know what I mean? So it's so frustrating. Sam, what are your thoughts here on all of these changing events with what we learned from Deadline?
Okay, so I definitely think, there's always going to be a bit of especially in the writing. I think that anybody going in expecting it to be exactly the way that it was, I think is in for a disappointment, because Joss Whedon was such a unique, singular talent with the way he wrote, but he's canceled now. And, perhaps rightly so. So whoever's writing it is not going to write with the same vernacular and the same idiosyncrasies and his particular knowledge of dialogue rhythm that he had. It's going to be a different voice, and that's fine. And that's totally fine. And it's a new era anyway, and the show is going to tackle the supernatural, but it's going to tackle it in a new way and with new issues
Mm-hmm.
as metaphors for new issues. I think the problem is that, again, to Sarah's point, it's so bizarre because it was such a reflection of the times and of like of the rise of feminism in a real big way. And now we've come so far, but given the current climate, we're really regressing. And I think it's really scary. And I think it's scary that this happened.
So, we've been alluding to it this whole time. I'm going to read out what Sarah said to People Magazine just so we have it on the record and then we can comment on it. So, she says, no one saw this coming, including the head of Searchlight, blah, blah, blah. She says, we had an executive on our show who was not only not a fan of the original, but was proud to constantly remind us that he had never seen the entirety of the series and how it wasn't for him. That's very hard when you're taking a property that is so beloved as Buffy, not just to the world, but to me and Chloe. So that tells you the uphill battle that we had been fighting since day one, when your executive is literally proud to tell you he didn't watch it. Now, this was very bold of her, because do you think, just from a strategic point of view, before we go into the substance, do we think that Sarah is putting this out there as like a card on the table to try to get them to reconsider, to try to get the public to have outrage and like get the show back up and running? I would love to believe that's the case. It's either that or she's just bringing to light and being like, yeah, we're not doing the show. Here's why. Here's who to blame. You want transparency. Here was what I was dealing with. You can tell there's a lot of frustration here. So, Sarah, what are your thoughts on why do you think Sarah Michelle was so candid here?
I think a little of column A and a little of column B. I think truly, if it was just like one ass who stopped this whole thing, if there's enough outrage over one guy, I think they could still swing it. But also, I
Okay.
think she's just had it. And she, obviously, she put her heart and soul into this. She knows her fan base. She knows how excited people are. She's always been pretty transparent anyway. So I feel like, yeah, it was a normal reaction for her to be like, hey, this is exactly what happened. I think if things just didn't work out, I think it would have been a gentler announcement. It would have been like, hey guys, we tried it. It didn't work. But clearly there is conflict behind the scenes. And I think she was like, I'm just going to air it out. And I love that for her.
Yeah. Sam, what do you think about Sarah's motivation here?
No, I think she's right. I literally feel the same way.
Okay.
I think that Sarah did release it for transparency, but also because she knew that her fans would get so outraged about it that it would hopefully turn the tides and make them reconsider. So I absolutely agree. That she did it to rile up public support. And I think it'll work, frankly. I do.
I kind of do too. I'm not trying to be blindly hopeful, but there's a part of me that still has a little bit of hope. So I guess I just don't know. Do I read her statements here as just kind of like, like Sarah said, I'm done, I've had it, or is it like, is it I'm still fighting? So, I hope that it's the latter. But, in regards to this, the thing that strikes me is I feel like there's a lot of pent up frustration in what Sarah is saying, that this guy, this executive, and that these meetings must have been really tough. And I get the sense that she and Chloe were speaking, they were in unison, they were linked up, but the executive that they were talking to was like a brick wall and they couldn't penetrate it. And it was a constant frustration on their part. And I get what she's saying, I can't imagine what it would be like for someone on the outside who doesn't know Buffy, whose life wasn't changed by Buffy. Because I truly believe that Buffy is a life-changing show. I think all of life's questions can be answered in Buffy, at least as a young person. I think that you can find all of the answers to your problems in the scripture of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And for someone who doesn't get that and who thinks it's just a silly teen vampire show, that's just not for me. I didn't like the tone, whatever. And the fact that the way that she's saying he was proud to wave this around, it's frustrating. I get why she's so angry, or at least why she wants to tell us this. So, Sarah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that we're getting, I don't want to say conflicting information, but it's we're getting more pieces of the puzzle, and it's not as black and white as I think we all maybe thought it was upon the initial announcement that it was canceled. Because when it first came out, it literally was all systems ago, everybody was on board. It was this one guy. He just made a unilateral decision. Like, everybody thought it was great. And now it's like, well, actually, this guy's been like a problem the whole time. And then it's like, what else was going on behind the scenes? And then that's just like, that's such a bummer for her. Cause like you'd said kind of in the intro, like the projects she's been attached to lately, like unfortunately haven't been turning out. And it makes no sense because like I think she's so great. So I'm like, what is going on behind the scenes on these projects that she's attached to? And you will never know, but it's frustrating. But like she very clearly has the fan support. Like Buffy has some of the most die-hard fans you will ever come across. Like tonight, when we had shared that copy of the script, just this one website that it was hosted on, it counted the views, and it had like 94,000 unique views on this 60-page script. It's like, imagine that's like just the small percentage of us that were crazy enough to go seek it out. Like, just 90,000 people looking for a pilot script. Like, imagine the actual support the show would have had. Like, just the fumble by Hulu on this is crazy.
And like those are people who are so plugged into the fandom to know the ins and outs, to know that the show is canceled, to know that there's controversy around the show being canceled, and to know how to find the script, right? Imagine just the general audience people who have seen Buffy or heard of Buffy and who would watch it on Hulu. And that's the thing that I don't understand. I don't understand the business point of view about this. Like Buffy as an IP, if you have somebody like Chloe Zhao who has the audacity and the talent to really make it work in the modern era, and you have Sarah on board, this is just like money and viewership and a pop culture thing waiting to happen. And even if, let's just say, a worst case scenario, which I don't believe it was bad, but let's just say even if like it wasn't the greatest, look at the way that And Just Like That kind of was a huge pop culture conversation for its 3 seasons. The fan base was there. It was just, it was waiting to happen, especially with Sarah attached. It would have been such a great thing. Sam, what are your thoughts?
No, I mean, I completely agree with everything you just said. I think that Chloe is such a hot talent right now, and she has garnered so much praise and so many accolades for her work, including and she's an Oscar winner. And the fact that somebody of that caliber, the fact that there was such backing behind it, and the fact that Chloe was like loved it so much. Shonda Rhimes, by the way, is also a huge Buffy fan too. I
Yes,
should
she
also add.
is.
So there's a lot of people out there who would love to see Buffy come back. And in addition to which, vampires are super hot right now. Sinners just won 4 Oscars. So including in a few categories that are kind of unprecedented for the genre. I'm not saying that the Buffy first draft script was perfect. I also don't think that Buffy needs to be the star or the main character of the new series. Obviously, we've gone beyond that. They're going to want to hook in. It's one of those things where they're going to want to hook in younger viewers while also retaining, like, the middle-aged people and millennials and Gen X who grew up watching the show. So they want to kind of appeal to both demographics. So I don't think it necessarily makes sense to only, to center Buffy that much. I think it's good to like have like a balance and at least split equal screen time between Buffy and the new Slayer, and probably give the new Slayer a little more. But that being said, give it a chance and at least like film a few episodes or something. But I guess, they didn't want to take the risk on that. But I can't imagine why. This was going to bring in money for them.
And relevance. Like, I think that's like my thing is like in the modern era, when there's so much content and there's such short attention spans, I think to be relevant in pop culture and to have people talking about you, even if it's for a moment, is so valuable. And again, like just like I kind of used And Just Like That as an example. People talked about And Just Like That. It was a thing that everyone discussed every weekend. I think that Buffy would have easily been able to capture that, even if it was just for a season, even if it didn't turn out perfectly. It's just frustrating, especially because Sarah wanted to do it. That's what hurts me the most is like, forever Sarah said no. She she literally said never. And then she finally gets convinced and she finally does it. And she's finally on board and she's finally excited about it. And then the studio says no. That to me is just like, I can't tell you the pain I feel about that. And I don't mean to sound dramatic or put a damper on the podcast, but it's just like the depth of irony. It hurts so bad. So Sarah, what are your thoughts and any final thoughts you'd like to share here about this news?
Yeah, I think my final thought on this is as much as I am sad about it for me, like I'm so sad as a fan. I'm sad as a fan of the show and as of Sarah, and I'm sad for the other like millennials and Gen Xers in, my camp that feel the same way, who are like really looking forward to revisiting the universe. I'm also sad for like young girls today, like, they need to have their own Buffy. Like, they're not gonna have their Nova now. And to me, like, she was such a role model. Like, the show aired when I was 8, and for whatever reason, my parents let me watch it. I'm a spooky girl, and they're like, okay, go watch the show about vampires, like, not knowing what it was. And she became, like, my first role model. So I'm, like, sad for the 10-year-old girl who's not gonna get to see, you know, her Nova on screen.
My heart just broke listening to you. It's like the part of The Wizard of Oz where the Tin Man says, I know I have a heart because now I know it's breaking, you know? So, but Sarah, thank you so much for coming tonight. And please tell everybody where they can find you online.
Thank you so much for having me. You know I'll talk about Buffy all day, every day. I am on Instagram at Sarah Campbell.
Sam, what are your final thoughts here?
I think Sarah summed it up pretty perfectly. I would also feel sad for the young girls who have now been deprived of a really badass role model
Mm-hmm.
and a really potential new pop culture fixation and someone to look up to and someone new IP to enjoy. So I do really feel sad for them, but I'm really hopeful that this project somehow will still get off the ground somehow in some way, especially after everything that we've talked about, and you like saying like, you know, Sarah like saying no to it for years and now being convinced to do it and all of a sudden like it's gone. So I absolutely I'm really sad that it's worked out like this. I'm sad for everybody involved in making it, and I'm sad for all the fans who don't get it now. But again, hopefully if there's right, then it could happen in the future, and I'm just gonna hope for that.
Yeah. And Sam, thank you for that optimism of not only, you know, about what Sarah said and like her, maybe like what her 3D game of chess that she's playing is, but also just like what you're saying is, yeah, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And I appreciate you kind of like reminding everybody of that. And, you know, maybe maybe there will be a better version of, if this doesn't work out right now, maybe there will be something even better, you know, in 5 or 10 years with Buffy. So, you know,
Hopefully it won't take that long.
no, I want it now. We have a Sydney and Scream 7 movie. We want the Buffy TV show right now. So just kind of run through something and just describe like the past like 2 decades of Sarah's career, because I want to just express like and get people to understand just how bad of luck she's had in terms of these things and why this hurts especially. Well, let's start with Southland Tales. That was a movie 20 years ago that came out. She did it with Richard Kelly, the director of Donnie Darko. It was a huge cult classic. It came out, it was a huge bomb. You know, it shouldn't have been whenever you're signing up to do a movie with the Donnie Darko guy. Okay? She does The Air I Breathe with all of these really qualified actors, Oscar nominees. You know, got really horrible reviews, even though Sarah gave what I think is an Oscar-worthy performance. Suburban Girl, a great romantic comedy in the style of The Devil Wears Prada. Went straight to DVD. Unfair, it's a great romantic comedy. Veronica Decides to Die, an adaptation of the book by Paulo Coelho. Should have won the Oscar for Best Actress that year. Amazing movie by Emily Young. The movie Possession, the Yarny Film Group. That company suffered from bankruptcy. So again, straight to DVD. She did an HBO pilot called The Wonderful Maladies with Adam Driver, believe that or not. We never saw it. We've never seen that. Makes me mad. Blood Boiling. She did Ringer, a season of like this film noir kind of drama. It was awesome. We wanted season 2 and 3 and 4. We didn't get it. It got canceled. She did The Crazy Ones with Robin Williams. Another, you know, it was kind of like on the bubble, moderately successful. He got a Golden Globe nomination. It didn't work out. He passed away, unfortunately. Then she tried Cruel Intentions for a pilot for ABC. It's actually pretty good. I really enjoyed the episode. I've seen it. And unfortunately, it didn't get picked up and it's buried now along with all these other pilots. Then she tried Wolfpack, a big comeback show about werewolves and teenagers where it was kind of a requel formula where she had this like, you know, limited role, but she was still important. It was one season, didn't last, despite a huge buildup, you know, to her comeback. Then she was in Dexter Original Sin. This show gets renewed. It's like a season 2, finally, and then boom. Canceled. So now we're here with Buffy. And it just makes me frustrated because it's like, I felt like at the end of the day, I felt like maybe Sarah always, deep down in her heart, yes, she says never, but maybe she felt, I will go back to Buffy. That's like my trump card. That's what I'll do, you know, if I need it, you know, and then she played it and it didn't work out. And so as a fan of Sarah and her work and all of these projects that she's done that I love, and I love her talent so much, I'm just in a lot of pain right now as it pertains to Sarah Michelle Gellar. And I will give Radio Silence credit for this one thing, which is the fact that they gave her it looks like a decent role in their sequel on the big screen in a horror movie. So thank you, Matt and Tyler, for giving Sarah that opportunity. She deserves so much more, and hopefully Ready or Not 2 brings her more opportunities. So anything you guys want to add before we sign off, Sarah?
Just that she's the only reason I'm seeing that movie. So I will always buy a ticket for Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Yeah. Sam?
Same.
So, well, guys, hopefully we can come and talk about Buffy in a couple of weeks or months and they have everything figured out. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next segment of Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I, of course, am your host, Ryan C. Showers, and for this Sarah Michelle Gellar special episode, we are going through and reviewing her new movie, her first film back in theaters, her first horror film in more than 20 years. So the last time she was in a horror film proper that was released theatrically was The Return in 2006, and it's one of my favorite films, literally. So it's been 20 whole years since Sarah Michelle Gellar has had a movie released theatrically that people saw in theaters, and it's horror. So very cool. And if you were watching my social media, you would have assumed that this was like a one-woman show based on the way I was promoting it. I mean, she's a supporting role, but I acted as though she was basically Samara Weaving in the first Ready or Not. But anyway, so, Ready or Not has a huge overlap with Scream because of radio silence, of course. Scream 5 and 6, they partially got Scream 5 and 6 based off of their work in the first Ready or Not. Ready or Not is, I would say, pretty beloved by this crew, the people who listen to this podcast, including me, the person here I'm hosting. So I was kind of skeptical about the sequel after the trailer. And it's so funny, the twists and turns of the story of Ready or Not, because here we are, and my reaction is not at all what I was expecting it to be. So let's talk about it. Let's do our little review here. So to do this review, I've invited two people. First up is my friend Anthony DePuzzo. Hey, Anthony.
Hey, Ryan, how's it going?
Well, you know what? I really miss being in Key West because there I got to meet you, and that was a blast.
That was a fun night. I'm so happy we finally were able to meet in person and in Key West, of all places.
Yeah. So you were exactly who you are in our interactions here in real life. It was just that natural and fun and cool. So it was so great.
Yeah, this is me, and you were the same, and I feel like we were just talking like we're on the podcast in person, but just closer, and it was a great time.
You're tall.
I am pretty tall.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, Anthony, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
Everyone, please welcome one of my favorite Scream friends and fans, Allie. Hey, Allie.
Hey, way to make me jealous that you guys got to meet.
I'm sorry. I know. It'll happen for us one day for sure. Anthony has entered the echelon of like the handful of people who I've got to meet in real life. So our time is coming. And, Allie is a big Ready or Not fan. So I'm excited to hear her take on the new film.
Yes, I can't wait to talk about it.
Okay, so guys, before we get going with our actual opinion about the movie, I'd like to know, where were people at before you saw it? Like, did you like the trailers? Did you think that a sequel was necessary? Like, what was your headspace going into the movie before I obnoxiously texted you and told you my opinion? So I'm going to start with Anthony.
Yeah, I mean, after the first one ended, I thought it was pretty, full circle, and I loved that Grace came out on top. But I am absolutely in love with the first Ready or Not. It's like a 9.3 for me. And I mean, when they're going to say they're going to do a sequel to a movie I love, I'm always there for it. The trailers were exactly kind of what I expected. That's not a good or bad thing. It's just radio silence going back to their baby and doing their thing. I thought it looked fun. Again, it looked, in the trailers at least, looked very similar to the first one. It just looked like more of the same, which is, I love that in a sequel. So I was down for it. I wasn't like wowed and like on the edge of my seat waiting for it. But, Samara Weaving being a badass, I was like, hell yeah, I'm in.
Okay. Allie, how about you?
I'm kind of the same. I loved the first one, and I think as a solo movie, I think it's fantastic. So I was kind of like, how in the hell are they going to make a sequel out of this? But I loved the trailers. I thought it gave us just enough, which, I feel like radio silence in the past has had the habit of giving too much away in trailers, right? But I feel like this, it gave us just enough of like that tease to really get us excited without giving too much away as far as like the whole third act. So yeah, I was pumped, and I was super excited to see the cast.
I will just kind of piggyback off of Allie. Like, for me, the cast, in particular, the one cast member, Sarah Michelle Gellar, was my big, like, holy shit. Like, this is truly exciting. So, I have to say, if Radio Silence has done anything right for me in the last 5 years, it's casting Sarah Michelle Gellar in this movie. But, I started out in a different place than you guys. I haven't been in, like, the greatest mood with Radio Silence since they left Gail Weathers bleeding out on her floor in Scream 6, and, like, that's the last we saw of her.
Same.
Especially after the boycott started, and Scream could have gone away forever, and Courtney could have chosen not to come back, and that would have been the last time we saw her. That made me really upset. And then, anyways, overall, Scream 6, right? And I feel like I got creatively disconnected from them, not only from Gail, but from Sam wearing the robe in 6. And I just haven't been in a great mood with them. I felt like they left Scream and treated it more like a stepping stone than a true passion project. I felt like they had an attitude like they could do better than Scream. So I haven't been in like the greatest mood with them. I didn't love Abigail. I thought it was like their worst film that they've done. I thought it was extremely flawed. So basically, my expectations for this were very, very low. In addition to the fact that I think the first Ready or Not is incredible, and I didn't think that there was a need for a sequel, and I didn't love the approach that they were taking with the sisters. I thought, yikes, here we go, Sam and Tara all over again. And I have to say, because my expectations were so low, I have to say I came out of this movie in the best mood. Whenever I was walking out, I loved it. And I'm still in a very positive, upbeat mood about it. But one thing I'm learning is like I'm kind of more positive on it than the average person, which is just incredibly ironic considering the last 3 years of me and the work of Radio Sounds. So I'm curious to hear what my friends have to say here. So Anthony, do you share my love for this, or
I am positive on the sequel. I think that it's a worthy enough sequel, and whatever your thoughts are on Radio Silence, they're always going to deliver. At least you're going to have a good time at the movies, and they deliver a bloody good time with this movie. They seem much more comfortable with their own baby versus being in Scream, because I feel like in 5, which again, I love the Scream movies too. I love 5 and 6, but I feel like in 5 they were trying to kind of like pay homage, but kind of like replicate Wes a little too much. And then in 6 they made a Radio Silence Scream movie, but it didn't for me work 100% as a Scream movie. But what I give them credit for in 6 is they went for it, whereas in here I think they went for it, but I kind of like, this is your baby, like go for it more, like don't play it so safe. I feel like I wanted a little bit more in that respect. But I love seeing my 90s icons in this movie. I mean, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Sean Hattie, and Elijah Wood. We got the faculty reunion. That's one of my favorites. But those three, seeing them in larger roles than I thought they would actually have, like really surprised me. I mean, Sarah Michelle Gellar and Sean Hattie's the big bad of the movie. I mean, spoiler alert. That was really great. He killed it. He was a scene stealer. Sarah Michelle Gellar, awesome. Samara Weaving, I love her so much as Grace in the OG, and she continues to be the secret sauce of these movies. And it's just so awesome seeing her back as Grace. But one of my nitpicks is it's not her, it's a writing choice. I feel like she's already kind of like jaded and almost like, oh, here we go again in this one. Whereas that would make sense if it was a couple years later, but we're in the same night. And I kind of missed, because in the first one, our girl is fighting to get out of there and fighting for her life. So I kind of feel like it didn't have the urgency in that respect or the simplicity of the first one, which I was worried about. And I love that the most. And I do think it pales in comparison to the OG in almost every way. But overall, before we really get into it, it's a super fun one that's going to be very watchable and a good double feature with the OG. But I'm not as high as it, and I would say I liked it, but wanted a little more. I was slightly underwhelmed, but I enjoyed it, and it's a good time, and it'll be a good fun double feature to watch with the OG. But it doesn't touch the OG at all for me.
Okay. Well, there is so much in there I want to unpack. But first let's hear from Allie, and then we'll start going line by line here. So Allie, what are your thoughts on Ready or Not 2?
I fucking loved it. Like, I walked out of that movie with the biggest fucking grin on my face, and I immediately texted you. I said that's how I wanted to feel about walking out of Scream 7. Like, it was such a like fun ride. And so like the first movie, I loved it. And it's literally on the line with me with Scream as far as like movies I can just put on and just let play and still love it every time. And I can't wait to watch, like you said, to have this be a double feature, to be able to watch it as like one extra long film, especially since it picks up immediately, is going to be fantastic. And I think you guys are right. The cast was spot on. They were so good. And I love Nestor Carbonell also. He's dreamy. But yeah, Sarah killed it. Sean killed it. Elijah killed it. I loved the whole thing.
Well, so let's talk here about the specifics, because I'm definitely more positive than Anthony is. But I think, Allie describing Allie, is it crazy of me to suggest that maybe you feel like you prefer Ready or Not 2 to Scream 7 based on how you explain that?
Right now, yes. Only because I haven't had a chance to watch Scream 7 again. Like I said, I needed to. I have like kind of settled with Scream 7 a little bit more, and it has kind of gone up a little bit, in my opinion, since I've watched it. But right now, of the two, I really liked Ready or Not better.
So I'm definitely team Scream 7. Anthony, which do you prefer?
I mean, Scream 7, hands down. I mean, I fall in love with that every time I watch it more and more. Banger sequel.
So I want to start out with Samara Weaving, because Anthony, kind of going off what you were saying about her and about like, I felt like you were trying to articulate something to the effect of like, she doesn't feel the same as she did in the first one. And for me, this is my interpretation of why I'm a little softer on her than I used to be. So, like, for the first Ready or Not, I would probably consider her to be my favorite modern final girl who isn't from a previous IP. You know, taking out the Laurie Strodes, Sidney Prescott's, even Tatum Evans. You know, she's from Scream, Julie James, whatever. I would say as a new character, Grace was my girl. I loved her in the first one. And like the first movie worked so well because it was Grace against the world. The movie succeeded on the back of Samara Weaving's performance. And here, I don't feel that way. I feel like, you know, with that first performance, there was so much nuance, so many different notes that she was playing, peaks and valleys to the character. And here, she basically starts out in this really high emotional octave, and then she just kind of flatlines there until Act 3, and then she becomes interesting to me again. But I was just so disconnected from Grace, I have to say. And that was it wasn't a huge damper on the movie for me because like for me, I don't really care about the rules and like the game and the original. I'm so focused on her as a character. Here it's the opposite. I like the other family members. I like, you know, Sarah and Sean. I like the different ways that these roles are unique to the second level of the game. I got into that. I got into like the themes and like the universe, if that makes sense, more with the sequel than I was in Grace, let alone Catherine Newton's character, who honestly, I have to say, I don't really care about. I don't really care about. And we're gonna talk about the sister dynamic in a second. But like, just in terms of Grace, I have to say, like, I feel a little bit let down. And it's not that Samara did anything wrong. I think she showed up as an actress. It's just that Grace as a character, she just wasn't as compelling to me this time around as she was in the first film. So, Anthony, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree. In my opinion, and again, I don't think it's not a Samara issue. That's again a writing issue, in my opinion. And I think because of the timeline they chose, it doesn't make sense for her not to have be in that same headspace as the first one. This is all still new to her, and I think my issue is this is kind of like trying to be, which again it is 7 years later, but a nostalgic sequel when in timeline it's the same night and it's trying to be like, oh, remember this from the first one? Remember like, and she's singing the song, the hide and seek game, like she's almost feels like she's like, okay, been there, done that, but this is that same night, girl. You're in the same scenario. So I have a problem with that. And I will say, great in the opening when I love when she's having the flashbacks and she's having in the hospital bed. I love that stuff like that when it keeps flashing back. But then she kind of just goes to this jaded like switch over, like, what is my sister doing here? Let me try to connect with her. And it's almost like, let her be a badass for a scene and then let's have the sister moment. Let her be badass for a scene, let her have a sister moment. And I feel like in the first one, the spotlight wasn't taken away from Samara, but each family member, I got to know who they were. And I think that maybe, again, I was worried about this one went a little too big, which for the villains, I would say the only character, I don't even call Sarah Michelle Gellar a villain in this one fully, but I think her character and Sean Hannity are the only ones I really got to feel something with and develop. The other ones are just throwaway, like, let's get them killed off. So I feel like that was them going bigger for more violent kills, but in my opinion, it hurt me more because I felt the connection to the family and it meant something when she took all of them out. This is just like, let's knock them out so we can just have another heartfelt moment with Faith and great.
Well, you know, Anthony is taking my rating for this and he's chipping away at it. I may actually be going under what I posted. So, and it's just interesting, like sequels that take place in the same night as the original films, like let's just say Halloween Kills. I don't feel the same way I felt watching Samara here about, say, Allison in Halloween Kills. There was peaks and valleys there, and she was a different character. Here, I don't know, there's just something about Grace that's just, she kind of plateaus, and she's not as charming as she was in the original, and there's just something there that just doesn't really grab me. That being said, and we are talking spoilers, Act 3 and the twist completely mesmerized me. And the Act 3 in the finale, I just feel like it goes to a whole other place with like the way that the characters kind of like interact psychologically, how they're all kind of trying to maneuver the chess pieces, the costuming, the vibe, the intensity. I was completely mesmerized by Act 3. And that's when Grace, in my opinion, kind of reappears, where she becomes fascinating again and fresh and like really different. So before I go on to Allie, Anthony, do you have any thoughts about Grace in the Act 3?
No, I would agree. I think Act 3 I really like because again, that was within line of being different. It was the first one just on a magnified scale. And I like how in the first one, Grace, the way she won was being like literally animalistic in the first one. That's how she's fighting. And even though it's the same night, she's been through it again. While I do think she should have had more urgency, I like how at the end of this one, she's like uses the rules against them. And that's how she gets out of that situation. So I do love, I mean, I really do enjoy this one. I just feel like, I kept feeling like almost, I know this is gonna sound a little harsh, but I almost feel like going through the motions is
Mhm.
how I describe this movie, a lot of it, and I wanted just a little more of, like, give that radio silence, like, take a chance like they did with 6 with their own baby. I feel like they would have felt more comfortable doing with here, but I agree, the 3rd act, with her outsmarting them, that was chef's kiss. I'm like, "Alright, that's my Grace. I have her back."
Yeah, totally. Well, Allie, how about you? I feel like you're going to disagree with us here. What did you think of Samara?
I actually really kind of agree with you guys. I do think that it did seem, I don't know if it's just that we're seeing a different side of her because, in the first one it's more about her with Alex. Um and, her being on her own and but being in love with Alex, and now you have this whole other dynamic, right? That you kind of have to unpack that, there's this, because it's like she says in the first one, like that she has no family. And I feel like we still don't really get a good like explanation. I don't know. It didn't feel like that part was fleshed out enough for me for them to have so much like vitriol for each other. To not give us more of that story.
Yeah.
But I do, and it's funny that you said that you felt like her character flatlined. She literally fucking flatlined, Ryan. Literally, she flatlined.
She was making a movie called Stab. She was Stab.
Exactly. Detective Walls till the end. No, I really agree with you guys. I think I do also love her, the almost like the misdirect in Act 3 where it's, it almost seems like she's just accepted self-defeat and compliance, but really she's
Making
working she's
moves.
working the
Yeah.
rules against them, which was fucking genius. It was genius.
Well, so let's take it a step further here. So now let's talk about Catherine Newton and the introduction of her as the sister and the sister dynamic. And like, I'm going to start out. I'm going to kick us off here. I am so annoyed by this. And I know I sound like a Grinch, and I know I sound kind of predictable. But if Ryan Showers sounds predictable in his analysis, it's because Radio Silence was predictable in their filmmaking. I can't believe that they did the exact same Sam and Tara arc. I mean, literally even down to just the details. Like, I think it's the same estrangement storyline is replicated from 5 to here. Even the hospital scene, it is like the exact same thing as Sam talking about the diaries. That first, the introduction of Catherine Newton, and where they reconnect. It just felt like it was a copy and paste of that storyline. And for me, it was such a bummer. And I actually think that it was a downgrade. I don't buy them as sisters. Like, I bought Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega. I don't know if it was the acting. I don't know if it was the writing. I do ask, like, again, the problem herein lies the fact that Ready or Not was so special because it was just Grace. And adding a second character did not make the movie better. I think it just detracted from the overall film. And, on top of it, I just feel as though it's such an offense to be trite of your own work, of something that just happened, a couple of years ago, where it makes me almost like kind of like lay on the flaw a bit harder than I should, because it's just like, really, you know what I mean? I don't know. Anthony, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I guess at this point, again, they're doing it twice in a row as a lazy, repetitive plot device. And I love Catherine Newton. She's a horror girly. I think she's a great actress. I thought she was better in Abigail. She was a scene stealer. And again, it might be the writing versus the acting, but I almost feel like it was just a plot device to keep Grace invested and like really fun. Like, I gotta save my sister, gotta save my sister. And I almost feel like Faith wasn't even that scared. Like, I know she was like, what the fuck's going on? But I almost feel like she was like, all right, let's do this together. I feel like I didn't feel the stakes, whereas, I felt Tara's fear and I appreciated Sam, going really to protect Tara, especially in 5, where this one I almost feel like we gotta keep this going and we just gotta bring in a family member, do the whole sister thing. And again, it's almost like touching moment, back to action, touching moments. Like, we don't, like, I can see what they're, you don't have to like do this dialogue every time, just show me in the action. And I almost feel like that stuff would have made more sense to me if like this is kind of basic and repetitive. I'm like, really, we're doing this. If they kind of flipped it on its head and the Radio Silence really went for it, and they made Faith at the end, we found out she was like married in to one of these families, and then they had to duke it out at the end. Like, let's take some like risks and chance. Like, that would have been ballsy. I'm like, okay, I get all that. It felt like kind of like half-assed because Faith was really evil, but we didn't go that route. But I was like, are we leading to that? That would be something that would excite me, that Grace is forced to fight and kill Faith at the end, her estranged sister. But we didn't get that. So it's kind of just more basic stuff. I'm at with it. I'm not mad about it, but I'm kind of like, once I saw the trailer, I'm like, all right, that's how we're going to go. Like, typical.
You mentioned like touching scene action. Did you find the scenes touching? Like, did the chemistry work for you? Were you emotionally invested?
No, I wasn't. And it's not because I'm not, both actresses did great, but again, it's just it's a lazy trope and lazy writing, or I felt more of the connection between Sam and Tara. This one, I'm like, they're like, we have to have this little conversation just so the audience like is invested in them. Where I'm just like, just show me that in Grace protecting her. I don't need to be told. I feel like they took away a more suspenseful scenes of Grace being able to protect Faith in action, or Faith vice versa, Faith protecting her injured sister in action, showing how much they still love each other versus we got to get this hokey dialogue in here every few minutes in between kills.
Yeah, and yes, I was not emotionally invested until the very end. Like
Same.
not the scene where she says, I'll marry you, I'll marry you. Maybe like the scene right before the last quote touching, scene. I think I even like not that I shed a tear, but I did get emotional. I was like, okay, finally it's hitting. I still think the sister storyline was a mistake. I think that there was they could have done something else other than defaulting to this. And it's just disappointing. I don't know. And again, I can't get over the fact that it's the exact same arc, the same details, the same setting. It's just, what did you think of Catherine Newton and the sister storyline?
Honestly, I don't know if this was just like pure ignorance on my part. Like, I didn't put it together until after I saw you talking about it that it was the same like storyline. I liked Catherine Newton a lot. I've really only seen her. What have I seen her in? I watched Abigail, but I don't remember anything about it. And I haven't seen Freaky. That's the one she was in, right? It was Freaky.
Yep.
I haven't seen that one, and I don't know what else I've seen her in, honestly. But I did really like her. I didn't so much, kind of like you guys, I didn't so much buy the chemistry between them until more into the third act. But I did like them together, like towards the end. And I guess like they do kind of look alike. They have the blonde hair and the big eyes and the kind of like the same kind of mouth, I guess. So like a good casting, I guess. But yeah, I liked them. I bought it more in the back half. But like I said, I feel like we needed more. I don't know if we just needed more depth to their story, or I don't know what it needed, but obviously it needed to not be the same plot as Sam and Tara.
Well, so, let's move on now to the superior siblings, who are played by Sarah Michelle Gellar and Sean Hannity, Ursula and Titus. So they are, in some ways, here's what I love about Ready or Not, too. First of all, it's them individually as characters, them as a duo. Their scenes as brother and sister when they're hunting Grace at first, but then the arc that goes on with them, and we see Titus, how unhinged he is, how violent he is with Faith. I think that was a really shocking scene, and how it builds to Ursula kind of coming to Grace and trying to work with her, and then leading to her really shocking, devastating death at the hand of her brother. By far, like the best thing about this movie was that I can't express how much I thought that these two characters were so interesting. And also, them being siblings and twins. I'll put a fine point on it. Them being twins, mirroring. So Ursula and Titus kind of mirroring Grace and Faith. I think that the idea of like siblings on siblings is a really good plot device. And maybe the film would have been better had they even doubled down on it, if it was just the two of them as opposed to all the other families. I don't know. But I thought it was like the best part of the movie. I think both Sarah and Sean were excellent individually, but also like their dynamic together. Everything about them just had depth. And even their first scene is just gnarly, with them killing their father. I loved them. So, okay, Anthony, what did you think of Sarah and Sean here?
Sarah and Sean stole the show for me. I really appreciated this sibling relationship because they did take risks with this one. I thought, like, okay, they're just going to go back and forth, like, and they're going to be together trying to kill them in the movie. There was also an evolution of their relationship throughout the movie, which I was like, whoa, that stuff got to me, where the whole time Titus, you think in the beginning that he's the softie with his dad, and Ursula's like, we have to do this for dad. First of all, David Cronenberg, loved that cameo, awesome, but she really pushed him. Then throughout the movie, you kind of turn and see Ursula, who her brother really is, and that he is this like evil, manipulative, big force. And Sean Hannity, I mean, kudos to him, because I felt that presence. And Ursula throughout, she kind of has the opposite arc. She's like, why am I doing this? I don't want to be involved in this, and I'm just doing that. I was just simply trying to keep my family legacy going. I'm doing this for family, where he's doing it for all these crazy reasons, like the power trip and the aggression. So I love that, and her last scene broke my heart. I really wanted Grace to pull the switcheroo and kill Titus and then just marry Ursula instead. That That's what I'm like. I want that. But again, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Sean Hannity, hats off to you guys. You guys killed it. That was my favorite part of the movie, their relationship and the evolution and the development of that. I'm like, that was good writing. That was good. I almost wish that it was mirrored with the Grace and Faith stuff. I love Grace and Faith individually, but together, the Titus and Ursula, that was the MVP of the movie for me. Excellent stuff.
And the change that Ursula undergoes, like, the thing that like really made me lock in this movie was after Grace says, I'll marry you, and the way that all four of those characters, they shift, and it's like each of them are thinking something different psychologically. We don't really know what Grace is, if she knows what she's getting into. Seeing Sarah's reaction through that all, through her death, completely mesmerizing. I just think the world of this choice, and it's so fresh and just novel to the universe. I just think it was so great, and the actors were perfectly cast. I thought, like, the way you described him as like the softie at the beginning, I totally got that, and that's what makes it so great. The fact that he turns out to be this truly violent, evil man. Great stuff. Allie, what did you think?
No pun intended, they fucking killed it.
Yeah.
I loved them. I loved their dynamic together. I thought Sarah and Sean worked like together so well. I loved them as siblings who are kind of like, feel like they're kind of like on the same page in the beginning, and then, like you said, their characters change so dramatically towards the end. Honestly, the scene with Ursula and Grace, like before the wedding, almost felt a little Buffy-ish.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like seeing Sarah in that like, I don't know, something about it was just very Buffy for me. And to see like how she went from being this like badass bitch who's like, killed her dad and is hunting these people, to being like genuinely scared of what's gonna happen next.
Mm-hmm.
Their development was so good, and Sean was just, the change for Titus was fucking phenomenal. Was so good.
Yeah, I agree. And, I think that it's just so interesting to me that like they were able to so successfully steal the show. In some ways, I could have seen this like almost like them being the main characters in the sequel. I think would have been very interesting too if you wanted to just get away from Grace altogether. But I thought, again, I have to see it again to see if there were specific like things laid out where those two siblings were meant to mirror the other two siblings. It was just something that it was like the good kids and the bad kids in a way. I don't know. So I want to ask you guys about the feeling of this as a sequel, because I think Ready or Not 2 is much, much different than the original. The way that it looks, the aesthetic, the tone, it's more modern in look and feel. It's almost hard for me to compare it to the original Ready or Not, because the original Ready or Not was so gothic. Everything was lit by candle, and it's just, the set decoration was just, it was different. And like, I don't know, the themes felt more contained. And here it was just like they were dealing with something so grand and large. Anthony, what do you think of this concept and how Ready or Not 2 could fit or contrast with, the original?
Yeah, they definitely chose the route of, again, it's a sequel. I don't blame them going bigger, open it up. I like that there was a lot of daytime scenes, but I really do prefer, like you said, the gothic contained setting of Grace being stuck on that property in that house. She still got to go outside and run away in the first one, but it's something about that felt more, again, urgent and scary for her. Where in this one, I just felt like there was so much land and landscape for her to hide and go. I didn't feel like she was trapped as much in the first one. To me, that's a little bit of a problem. But overall, it was fun to see the world open up and I like how I got a little chuckle how in the beginning we kind of cut to all the bad people in the different locations around the world. That gave me a good chuckle. So it did feel bigger, but I like the containment of the first one. But for a sequel, it makes sense opening up, and the fact that they're having all these different families, and it made sense for that. But to your point, I almost wish they kind of like got that out of the way, and that really was just the Danforth family versus Grace and Faith back in that location. It could have been bigger, more open up, but I miss the containment. I felt like it just made me more scared for Grace in the first one versus this one. I'm like, oh, this girl, she's got it by the end.
Yeah, I wasn't scared for Grace at all.
Yeah.
And that's a problem compared to the first one, where the whole thing is about her kind of evolving. I don't know, just they could have done better. But yeah, I will say I really liked the modern feel, the modern flair. I think this is one area where it's like almost like you could look at it like Scream 5 and 6, to the move from Woodsboro to New York. There's something distinctively, separate about the two entities. And I feel that here. So much so, whenever I was leaving the theater and I was really on a high, because I did not expect to have such a good time. And I think maybe I just got ahead of myself because of the Ursula and Titus arc and Sarah being in it. I don't know. But I was really like living my best life. I was like, I don't know which I like more because they're so different. Even the themes, like, I don't think that like the first one had such an interesting perspective on class, if that makes sense. And I don't think it's not the same here. It's more about like the globalism and the power of like these secret people all around the world. I don't know. Anthony, any follow up before I go over to Allie?
I will say I do appreciate that it wasn't the same exact thing. I like that you're saying like it feels like a bigger global effect that this whatever this association or whatever that it has, it's like bigger than we even thought it was in the first one. So I like that, but it takes away a little bit of the charm for me,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
It does. Did you like the new rules and like the different loopholes that they included in the script, or did you find them hokey? Because I personally liked them, but I heard from Joey Valisi and Josh Reinhold today, and neither of them liked the new rules. They thought they were hokey.
It did feel a little more because the first one very, very cut and dry. Survive till dawn, you're good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you survive to dawn or you die and the curse is broken. I mean, it's hokey, but that's fun. That's the fun part about it. And again, when you're gonna do a sequel to a movie that has a premise like that, you kind of have to go a little hokey and bigger. So, and I fully expected that with Radio Silence to go hokey and big. So I liked it. I liked seeing Elijah Wood, in the front, like reading off the rules, and it led to Grace being able to outsmart them. So I don't have a problem with the rules. They were hokey, of course, but kind of like it they were hokey.
Yeah. I really got caught up in the roles. I was more invested in the roles than I expected to. I think that Guy Busick has a tendency to make things overcomplicated, look at Final Destination Bloodlines, but I thought that they worked here.
I liked the rules. I liked that level of like that. It brought that level of comedy where he brings out this fucking cinder block of a Bible like with the bylaws and shit. Like that kind of stuff. I bought into it. I liked it a lot.
No, I did too. I thought that was like, it made it fun and I was able to follow it. It wasn't, to me, again, I hate when Guy Busick makes things overcomplicated, and things did get complicated here, but I found it to be kind of exhilarating. The twist about the marriage, I was like, yay, fun. So, but you bring up the comedy, and I want to just, let's go around and talk about Radio Silence and how they handled the tone of the film here. Because, as somebody who just didn't love the comedy in Scream 6, especially, and kind of Scream 5, but mostly Scream 6, I thought that it was handled beautifully here. Anthony, you started out your segment here talking about how Radio Silence feels like they're at home here. It's effortless for them to tell this story. And I agree with you 1000%. It's so interesting how, even with Abigail, and let's just set Scream aside, I don't feel like Abigail flowed so easily from them. It still felt like they were trying hard and it wasn't connecting in a natural way. Whereas here, this feels like they were born to tell this story. And I think the comedy is a huge component of that. I think the comedy is really effective. It wasn't distracting. It fit perfectly, in my opinion. I loved their work. I think that them as directors, they have the tone on this world, under control. So, Anthony, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like when the way the first movie ends with people literally blowing up, I kind of went into this one knowing it was going to be a little more silly and be silly comedy focus versus the first one. I think it was handled well. Do I miss the tension and the scares mixed with the natural humor? I will say the first one, I laughed my ass off, but it was all natural. It was all in the moment because of something the characters did. It wasn't like, I felt like they weren't trying to make a comedic scene. It almost came off natural because of the characters playing off each other or something ridiculous and over the top happening in the moment. This one, I could tell they were going like this is going to be a funny, silly scene. So while I do prefer the blend more in the first one, again, when you end the way you're ending the first one, you kind of got to go into the sequel knowing they're going to have fun and make it a little more silly. So I think they handled it well. I wish there was a little more mixture of tension with it, but I thought it was fun. It was fun.
Yeah. Allie, how about you?
Is it weird that I laughed every time someone exploded?
No, I mean, that's the point.
That was the purpose, yeah.
Because it's like, and that's like obviously what's going to happen to them, but just like the level of comedy, like with that being part of like the rules tied into it, right? Like you can't kill another family member or you'll die. And, it's like that, it made me laugh a lot. And it wasn't like forced. It was just like it was like the shock of something. And it was like, someone's facial reaction or whatever, like the brother signing away and he's like, my wife can do it. And, like sending her off. And it didn't feel like forced comedy. It felt just funny. Like, but also, kind of horrifying, but it still made me laugh.
Well, I think that's a great way to describe it. And again, I think Radio Silence just nailed the tone. I think that their work here is really strong. So, okay, guys, do we have any final thoughts on Ready or Not 2? And what is your rating out of 10 for this film? Anthony, what say you?
Again, overall, fun sequel. Gonna be a fun double feature. I wanted a little more of it, more than like bigger, but going through the motions. But again, I'm fine with more of the same, a little bigger. It was fun. Again, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Sean Hattie stole the show. Love seeing Samara Weaving build up to that third act, even though I do wish she had more urgency. The character, not her. Sorry, the character. I think overall, though, it's just they can't go, these movies, Ready or Not 2, they're just damn good times, and they're fun movies. And while I was expecting a little more, wanting Radio Silence, like, we're going back to our baby, let's go all out, I'm fine with them just making a sequel that's watchable with the first one and a good fun double feature. So I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10.
Okay,
It's
cool.
a good movie.
Allie, how about you?
I love it. I left it so happy. It was such a fun ride. I know I texted you about, I don't know if they're Easter eggs, so to speak. Like, I don't know if they were intentional. In the first one, Tom has that kind of throwaway line, like, I've got a tea time at 8.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where like they want to get the game over with. And it's like, was he going to play golf with Titus?
Yeah.
Like, was he, like, obviously, like, this whole new one takes a place at a fucking golf course. I was like, I don't know if that was intentional, that they like put the setting there, or if it was just like a happy coincidence. I also spotted Faith is wearing a necklace that has like a little chili pepper or something on
Yeah.
it. And Grace has that tattoo like on her thumb. Like, I don't know if that was intentional. I think it would have been interesting if they'd at least hinted at it in some way, like even just kind of showing it as like a connection, if that's what it was meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to watch them together. I think they did a really great job making it feel seamless. You know, given the fact that there was, what, 7 years between them, for it to pick up immediately, continuity wise, it felt real. Like, it didn't feel like there had been time, you know, between the movies. It felt very seamless to me. Honestly, I probably give it an 8 or 9. And you know, I'm not one to usually like rank stuff. I'm terrible at ranking things, but maybe like 8.5, 8.5 or 9. I loved it.
Okay, cool. I like it. Amar, are you there? Can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi.
Everyone, we have a cameo from Amar Karim. He just got out of the movie. Literally, when I say he just got out of the movie, he just saw it like, 2 hours ago. So he is fresh out the movie. So Amar, please tell us what you think.
Well, I just want to first say thank you for having me. I'm sorry for gate crushing you. Hi, Anthony, and hi, Ali. Hope you're good. I literally came out
What's
of
up,
the cinema.
Amar?
Yeah, good. Honestly, I'm on a high right now. I only got the latter part of what you guys were saying, and I was like, oh, I could have been here from the start. But I got out of the cinema about 15 minutes ago, and I think that is a fantastic film. Like, really, I did not expect much from it. The trailer didn't really sell me, and I was like, yeah, I'll go watch it. And I've just come out bouncing. I really have.
Well, Amar, what did you like about it? What didn't you like about it?
To be honest with you guys, I was listening to what you guys were saying, but there wasn't much I didn't like about it. I liked the changes. I liked the tone. I thought the comedy blended so well with the film. I hear what you both are saying, because I came out and thinking that Sean Hatosi and Sarah Michelle Gellar were absolutely fantastic. He is, I mean, from the beginning, I thought there's got to be a change here, with him. So I mean, it was great that the change happened, but it was brutal in which it happened. But I have to slightly disagree. I still think the MVP are Samara Weaving and Catherine Newton. I thought that the energy that they brought together, they bounced off each other really well. I thought the comedy was great. I like the fact that they don't overdo the whole sister thing. They have that moment. I actually like that Samara Weaving is grumpy and aggressive and in your face and shouting, because you've got to remember, this is literally the next day or 2 days later. And she's still in pain. She can't believe she's been put back into it. I thought all the characters were great. Every time Sarah Michelle Gellar came on screen, my eyes lit up. I thought, I'm biased towards that woman, but the woman can act. She looks fantastic. And I was devastated by what happened to her. But I was laughing all the way through. I mean, the fight with the pepper spray fight, so it was perfect. Because in that situation, what would you do? Literally, what would you do? Your life's on the line, right? So the cinema was in stitches. I mean, even Faith's first line when they take the gag off, and she's like, "You guys seem like really good people." Like literally, my entire cinema just burst into fits of laughter. So honestly, I need to see it again, but for now, I'm on a high. I didn't expect it to be that good.
So can I ask, Amar, do you think that the sister storyline was too similar to Sam and Tara?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I get that, and I was when I was watching it, I was like, yeah, Guy Busick wrote this. You know where this is going, and that's why it. Yeah. If you look at it from that point of view, I get it. It's not original or fresh, especially in this. If you look at Radio Silence and the writers that they've used, etc., etc. But at the same time, it was still different. But I just think that
It's exactly the same.
yeah, well, it is. It is.
Literally.
I can't deny that. I mean, there's nothing I can say to change. It is exactly the same. But I just think that Samara Weaving and Catherine Newton, I thought they were a great couple. Like they just bounced off each other really well. It felt like they were sisters. So I really enjoyed both of them too, to be honest.
So I have to ask, Amar, what is your star out of 10?
So I took my two eldest children, and they both came out saying 9 out of 10. And I said to them, I see what you're saying, but just to reserve judgment and see it for a second time, I'm going to give it an 8 for now.
Okay. I think that's smart. I gave it an 8 out of 10 whenever I first saw it. Anthony, like about 25 minutes ago, I was like, fuck yeah, I'm going to 7. Okay, I'm going to say 7.5. So, Amar, do you have anything else you want to share?
No, well, obviously you guys have covered quite a lot, I guess. So just to say that, for now, coming out of the cinema, fresh out of just seeing it less than half an hour ago, I thought that it was literally a fun ride. The explosions still got to me. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was bloody. I thought I like that Sarah Michelle Gellar and her brother have more of a role than the rest of the family because they all died pretty quickly. So I wasn't like bummed out about that. But the ending was just mental, like absolutely intense. And you know what? It was nice to see Elijah Wood in there.
Yeah.
And the fact that you've got your Buffys and your Supernatural alum and the faculty people. So I felt like I was just back somewhere where I belong with the characters and the actors and stuff. So I had a fun ride, definitely.
Well, so guys, one last thing before we go. I want all 4 of us to rank the 5 Radio Silence films. Ready or Not, Scream 5, Scream 6, Abigail, and Ready or Not 2. Start with Anthony. What's your ranking?
Are we going favorite to least favorite?
Yeah, favorite to least favorite.
Okay, so my favorite is Ready or Not. Then I'm going to go Scream 5. I'm going to go Scream 6 next. And then I'm going to go Ready or Not 2. And then I'm going to go Abigail.
All right. Allie, how about you?
I think I'm going to go Ready or Not, Ready or Not 2.
Ooh.
Only, this might change, because you know how often my Scream ranking changes. Ready or Not, Ready or Not 2, Scream 5, Scream 6, Abigail.
Okay. Amar, how about you?
Just because I'm on a high right now, I'm going to go Ready or Not 2, Scream 5, Ready or Not, Abigail, Scream 6.
Wow. He put 6 last.
I really like Abigail. I don't understand the hate and discourse that it gets.
Okay, so my ranking would go Scream 5. I can't believe I'm the only fucker here who put Scream 5 first. So I'll go Scream 5, Ready or Not 1, Ready or Not 2, Scream 6, Jesus Christ, Ryan's not putting Scream 6 last, and then Abigail. So interesting. So I definitely love the top 3. Scream 5, Ready or Not 2. I know like Ready or Not that's what the default to consensus would probably say is their best work because it's their original IP, but I have to go with Scream 5. My trio is there, and I do think that like on its best day, whenever I first saw Scream 5, I definitely would say I truly, truly, truly loved that film. So it is what it is, but cool. I think Ready or Not 2, the best overall Act 3 they've ever done. Like the finale of Scream 5 with Gail and Sydney and Sam, is up there for me. That would be my favorite finale. But just in terms of Act 3, I am so taken by the twist of Grace choosing to marry him and the way that it just fucks with all of the characters, and then Ursula tries to do the right thing and she ends up being killed by her brother. I think that's almost like Shakespearean, so. And Sarah Michelle Gellar, thank you so much for coming back and giving us this character. I'm really thrilled, and I hope that this gets her another opportunity, or in several opportunities, so. Okay, Anthony, please tell everybody where they can find you and any final words.
Yeah, guys, you can find me on Twitter or X, whatever, Anthony DePuzzo, and I do a podcast with my friends, Never Split Up Pod. Follow us on social media, YouTube. Happy that we have another fun Radio Silence movie to talk about, and I can't wait to see what they do next. Let's see what they do when they go back to someone else's franchise and go back to that kind of IP. Exciting times.
Allie?
I'm over on Twitter at Allie_cat_BSG.
Any final words here about Ready or Not 2?
I have to give props to the finale, the pit, that fight in the pit with the ring and the explosion. The little explosions here and there, and then just the one big like volcanic of blood was just, it was incredible. Like that fight scene at the end was just chef's kiss. I was laughing and gagging at the same time because of where they were and what was in there. But yeah, I loved that scene in particular. It was just comedy, disgusting gold.
Awesome. And Amar, thank you again for coming and being like I don't know, how would we describe you? You're like the Sydney in Scream 5 coming in at the very end with the gun walking through the house. Any final thoughts from you?
I will take that. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Amar Ali Kareem, all one word. And I just think that people should give Ready or Not 2 a chance. And if you can, watch the first one again just before you go in, just to refresh yourself. And just to quickly latch on to what Anthony said, I'm actually kind of excited and hopeful that Radio Silence can do justice to The Mummy 4, because I really enjoyed the first two films. So I hope that they don't mess it up.
Cool. Well, as long as Rachel Weisz has more than 5 minutes of screen time, I think we should be good. All right, guys, we will see you next time.
All copyrighted material used or referenced in this show belong to their rightful owners and made possible by the Fair Use Act.
And number 3, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back.
Get another beer, you want one?
Yeah, sure.
I'll be right back!
Dear God, Ryan,